episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And today, a show so good, it happens every Friday. Great Scott, it's your true crime Phil. And yes, Nettie Lou is right. I just left the Ferrari dealership. That's why I was actually a second late. Something you should know about Fil Waters, by the way. He's got some OCD tendencies like me, and he loves to be on the bottom of the screen. And I got in late, and when I popped myself in, he was on the top, and we had to readjust the screen for Phil. So just, I'm not the only crazy one. And look at, I asked Scott Duffy, I said, is today St. Patty's Day? He said he's leaving the show, never coming back. It is Sunday. Happy St. Patty's Day to all. Scott Duffy, this might be your best look yet. You look like a cute little Irishman,
little leprechaun,
like a little leprechaun. What have people said to you about your cute little outfit today, Scott Duffy?
I don't know. I'm waiting to see. It's not like I wore it all day. Sunday is the big day.
And will you wear that on Sunday again?
I will find a reason to. Sure, I have different green things to wear.
Look at that hat. It's shiny. Lorna says, love Scott's look. Favorite show every week. Scott is so handsome. Guys, you better say something nice about Phil, even though he's not Irish, but please.
I am Irish, by the way.
Oh, you are? There you go. I thought you were Cherokee.
My grandmother's family came from County Cork. So, yes, I am Irish.
Oh, there you go. Look at this. Phil, this is a great point. Phil looks like James Hetfield from Metallica. Yes, he does.
They keep saying that. I wish I could play the guitar like he does. My son can play the guitar like he does.
That's crazy. We should get your son on a live episode of Friday's show and do that. By the way, gentlemen, on a serious note, I did everyone speak to Mercedes Vega's mother, and I'm going to talk to Fil and Scott about it. She is heartbroken and obviously looking for answers regarding her daughter. And as promised, I'm going to try to connect her with me, Scott, and Phil before she comes on the show. So I will talk to these guys about that. What's fascinating, what I found out when I talked to her, she is, of course, Mercedes Vega's mother's Erica Pillsbury. She's a young woman that was murdered almost a year ago in Arizona. Anyway, the mother who I was speaking to, Scott Duffy, her career, her job was a 911 operator. She answered 911 calls. So she's been unable to do that. It's too traumatic for her, understandably, when people are calling in right now. So she's taking a break from that. But look at this. Jenny says, I'm in Cork in Ireland, Fil Waters. So long story short, I'm going to talk to Fil and Scott after the show. And Scott, you're the only responsible one, so please remind me to tell you about it. St. Patty's is huge. Have you ever spent St. Patty's Day in Boston, Scott Duffy?
No, not on St. Patty's Day. But it's like
I have.
Very nice.
I have too, just because I went to school
drank the green beer and all that stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Scott Duffy, what are you going to do this St. You look so cute, Scott Duffy, like a little, like you said, like a little leprechaun. I want to give you a little hug. What do you plan to do this St. Patty's Day, Scott Duffy?
Oh, I don't really have any plan. It all depends what the weather, the mood, who wants to go out with me. I won't wait in line. So if I see lines outside, I won't.
What do you mean a line? Can't you just walk up to the front and be like retired FBI agent, flash your badge and get right in?
It doesn't work. I'll be sent to the back of the line even more.
Look at this, Phil. It's not about your looks, but that blue wall by Phil is extremely flattering. Phil, you get Phil gets wall comments. Fun. Love me some Scott and Phil today. We should just read comments all day. I'm in a weird mood. I tried to go to the gym this morning. I was just so tired. I couldn't do it. I don't want to whine to everyone about how tired I am, but I am tired. So I'm going to force myself. The COE doesn't know this. COE has been painting. This is classic COE. She's been painting the kids' bathroom white. Where she came up with this idea, I don't really know. She's covered in paint. The kids are covered in paint. The floor's covered in paint. Fred Brown's fur is covered in paint. And Fil Waters, this would drive you crazy because it drives me crazy. She's dripping the paint into the tub, and it's like waterproof bathroom paint. So I'm like, how are you going to get it off the tub? And she's like, oh, don't worry. I bought something that will get it off. Do you think that she will be able to get the paint off the tub that she is now painting above?
Well, I can think of a few things that'll get paint off, but it might destroy the finish on the tub. So I'm not sure why didn't you put down some freaking cover?
Because she doesn't think that way, Fil Waters. Fil Waters, this is a dumb question. This is almost a rhetorical question, but are you handy? Like, would you paint your bathroom walls?
Would I?
Yes.
Personally?
Yes, personally. Would you get your hands dirty and paint?
Oh, yeah. Our house in Hawaii, we've got ohia posts, and I last year when we were there, I got my little hand sander out and sanded 7 ohia posts and restained them and resealed them.
What's an ohia post? Forgive my
ignorance. It's a wood. It's a type of wood.
Mm. And you painted and sanded.
In a tree, they cut these things in where they're great posts. So I have 7 of them. I have one that's like 25 feet, 30 feet long on the back of the house. But so I'll do that. I've got all sorts of stuff I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and let me ask you this: if there was a leak on your bathroom sink on the faucet, would you be able to fix a leak? Are you that talented?
No, I believe I would call my good friend Joe the plumber.
Joe the plumber. Scott Duffy, I think we've discussed this before. Are you capable of painting a bathroom? Look at the Blackwood door. She says I should outsource my bitching and save time. It's a good one, Blackwood door.
It's a good one.
Very good. Look at that. Scott is especially handsome today.
Ooh, wow.
Scott Duffy, would you ever paint your bathroom shower tile white, or would you hire someone to do that?
Oh, paint the tile.
Yeah, it's tile. Yeah. It's not just a wall. This is tile.
I just redo the tile, but I wouldn't. I think yes, I would say first I'm capable, but I wouldn't. I'd get somebody.
You could do that. You're that handy. Let's say you're I don't know. Let me come up with something. Let's say your Ring doorbell wasn't working. Are you like handy enough to like take your Ring doorbell off, go through it, fix it, put it back on? Is that beyond your scope of work?
I can take it off and recharge it.
You can do that. That's good. That's good. As you can tell, I'm not very handy. Bill's looking at me with disgust. All right, it's probably time to start the show here. I'm not the most handy guy, but please, COE, I have to go to the gym after this. I'm losing my mind. I'm getting stressed out. The book's coming out in May. I got a lot of stuff to do. And if I don't, Fil Waters, I found that there's meditation, there's this, there's that, there's whatever, a million different things. The only thing that really helps me is to physically work out, exert some energy. Have you found any Zen practices that calm your mind, Fil Waters?
Well, yeah. I used to work out. I mean, it was like a religious experience, right? So I would work out 4 or 5 days a week, run, play racquetball, all that kind of good stuff. It was great for just removing, the tension from things. And then also ride my motorcycle. So that's another way. And now it is I walk and I drive my Ferraris. So
how often do you notice he rubbed it in? It was plural. plural. It wasn't my Ferrari. My Ferrari. Not a lot of people can say I drive my Ferraris. People say to me, "What did I do wrong in life? Why is Fil Waters driving multiple Ferraris?" And I said, "Look, these guys, they retire when they're like 17. They have 19 other jobs. They have these incredible pensions. They don't pay for health care. They save up their money, these guys. It's the last laugh is on idiots who are not detectives or FBI agents." Scott Duffy's actually sitting on a pile of money right now. So you know how he's dressed in green? He's sitting on green money right now. This I am not T-Pain. This is a personal favorite comment of mine. Probably no one else's from Blackwood Door. Joel Moni Testicles Waldman. That would be a great meme. I am not T-Pain. I'm just saying STS best pictures.
That's quite the visual.
Yes, it is. Joel can't change a light bulb. This is actually true. It's I don't like complicated lighting fixtures. It's a whole other story, but I won't get into it. All right, let's get into the show. Let's get into the true crime aspect. Again, look, Phil. Here's your daughter, Abby.
Hey, Abby, how you doing, daughter? Good to see you.
There you go. This is a point in the show where the viewing number is actually going up, and I never understand why it's not going down. But this is a story that we're about to talk about that has the nation gripped. It really does. I just checked. It's trending. Go ahead, Fil Waters, please.
Let me say something here very quickly. It just now hit me. I want to make a correction to a story that you brought forth last week.
Oh, please do.
This was the knucklehead that chopped the head off the guy and was walking around New York City with it in a bag.
By the way, right. Yeah, I know what you're going to say. I know. Go ahead, but correct.
So I did a little research on that guy.
Yeah.
And he was not wrongfully convicted.
Right. You're right.
He was convicted for attempted murder and robbery and a bunch of guys. It was a bunch of, and he was in the hierarchy of the Bloods criminal street gang.
Wonderful.
And so his original violation there was he was with a bunch of people. You know, people shoot people over sex, drugs, or money. And so he was having some confrontation there, I guess, with some competition. Anyway, I believe he was sentenced to 50 years in prison, if I'm not mistaken, some ridiculous amount of time. And he got out after 25 years last year.
Yeah.
And so he goes to work for an organization that is reportedly designed to help convicts when they get out of prison to try to be productive. And when he was on the Joe Rogan show, he was on there with one of the administrators, leaders, or officers of that particular organization. Yeah. And they were talking about how impressed they were as to his rehabilitation.
Fantastic rehabilitation.
And he said all the right things, but then he turns out, like 2 weeks after he's on Joe Rogan, he ends up in that apartment with a guy that he knew from his time in prison, arguing about something, and I think shoots him in the head, and doesn't just cut his head off. He goes in and out of the apartment in different get-ups. In fact, in one, he's dressed up like a woman with a blonde wig. But what he is doing is he is removing each body part as he dismembers the body.
I wouldn't be good at that, Phil. I would not be good at that either.
Me, you know, I mean, a la Scarface, right? So, so this hue and cry, and I didn't watch the show. So, if he was in fact on there talking about how the systemic racism, all that nonsense, you know, it just proves that you go to the core of somebody and their true being it gets revealed eventually. And that guy is he's going to be Well, he's a career criminal, so he will be a correctional institution employee for the rest of his life.
Yeah, he's about to be a career prisoner. Is what he's about to be. Nikki
Yeah.
Cudds, Joel, come to New York City at the 92nd. That's very hard to get into, but we are booking a spot in New York City as we speak. Nick, I didn't know you lived in the city, Nikki Cudds, but we are gonna definitely be. Jersey's my home, so I will be in New York City. Joel, what do you do exactly? One thing I can't do on top of not putting in light bulbs and painting tile is I cannot dismember a body. That requires way too much energy. So you can never accuse me of that. But I will I'll rub Fred. I took Fred to the vet today for his next set of shots. There is some concern with Fred Brown about his nares. Scott Duffy, do you know what nares are? It's
Nares?
Nares, Nares.
Nare. I don't.
It is a medical term for nostrils. I never knew this myself. And since Frederick Morris Roosevelt Brown, man, I know someone's tuning in right now to hear this Riley Strange story, and they've been waiting for 16 minutes going, what the hell am I listening to? Well, join the club, whoever that is. So nares are nostrils. Fred Brown is a pug. He's got a smashed in face, which is what pugs have. And anyway, long story short, he's fine. I mean, he's awesome, but I had his nares looked at, and I got to have his nares looked at again. There's a tiny little procedure they do to widen them if there's a problem. He seems to be totally fine. Him and Ethel run around all day, but I worry about nares in my free time, to answer your questions, Sarah Adams. Now let's move on to this story. So this story is actually gripping the nation. As I said, I checked out Twitter, very reliable source, and what a cesspool that place is. But anyway, by the way, it was kind of hilarious. Don Lemon, who I mentioned in my book, former CNN anchor, he goes on. He gets fired from CNN, then says that he's now the CEO. He's getting worried that I'm going into this territory, but I mentioned him in my book. Don Lemon gets fired from CNN. By the way, he got paid. The last laugh is on me because he got paid $25 million to leave CNN, if you can believe that, which is just blows my mind. But anyway, he leaves CNN and he's going to start his new show on Twitter. He thought it would be a good idea to interview Elon Musk on for his Twitter show called the Don Lemon Show. What an original name. And he proceeds to ask a series of questions to Elon Musk that Elon Musk did not like. And then it's literally the minute the interview was over, Elon Musk sent an email to Don Lemon saying 2 words: contract terminated. Period. There's a period at the end of that. So Don Lemon is now looking for a new home for his show. Why I bring that up, I have no idea. By the way, there was another, before we get into this, I got to get Fil and Scott's take on this. There's a video all over the place of this. There was New York City is deteriorating before our eyes. There was a subway traveling through Brooklyn, Fil and Scott, and this guy is agitating another guy, and eventually they get into blows. The guy who picked the fight is now scuffling with the guy who is fighting him off. The guy who picks the fight has a small firearm on him, Scott Duffy. The man who is attacked is able to grab that firearm and in self-defense shoots the guy attacking him with that man's own weapon. He's now in critical condition, not in very good shape. Your thoughts on that, Scott Duffy? If you're attacked and in the scuffle, he was able to get the gun and fire at him, they say that charges likely will not be brought. Is that the correct move, Scott Duffy?
Yeah, I heard a little bit about. So ultimately, a guy
all
pulls out
caught
a
on
gun,
video, by the
Yeah.
way, all caught on video. You can Google,
which is
it.
always helpful to an investigation. So, yeah, I mean, you have somebody that is attacking you and now introduces a firearm to that scuffle, to that fight, and it's game over for whoever can, especially the one who is I take it at this point being victimized, and so he's able to do what he needs to do to get the upper hand and grab the gun. Now, if he grabbed the gun and that was it, the fight's over. Sure, he cannot discharge that firearm, but
This was in the middle of the scuffle, right in the middle of Fil Waters. The New York City subway is no joke. This was an African-American man who was berating a brown-skinned man, saying that we don't like your kind here. That's what he was saying to him, and he was basically forcing him into a fight. And finally, the guy stood up, and the fight ensued. Well, the brown-skinned guy was able to somehow wrestle away this gun and turned it on the man who owned that gun. Do you think we'll see charges here? Texas, no way, but it is New York City. We don't know.
Well, is there some reason why the skin color is even significant in this discussion?
Yes, because the African-American male was berating the other guy because of his skin color, saying that we don't like your kind. The brown.
Well, see, to me, that's a non-issue. That shouldn't be an issue in this. You got two guys, one guy on a subway, two guys on a subway, and one of them is a jerk, and he decides to berate another person. It doesn't make any difference. Excuse me. So I'm approaching this as I did my job. So it doesn't make any difference to me what flavor they are. Okay. You've got one guy doing the wrong thing to another person who is being, to use Scott's word, being victimized. And as long as the person who is being victimized in this particular case can articulate why he was able to why he felt threatened, why he did what he needed to do to eliminate the threat, and then by the time he got a hold of the other guy's pistol and was able and continued to feel that he was threatened with serious bodily injury or death, and then he used the other guy's weapon to dispatch him and end the disturbance and the attack. So if those things are all a factor here, he should not be charged. Now, I know in New York City, there have been several shop owners that have used deadly force against attackers, would-be hijackers who have attacked them, and they have killed them. And they have been charged. And then later on, I think most of those have all been, the charges were dropped.
Yeah. And Phil, remember we had that Marine that put someone in a chokehold, and he was charged too.
That's still going on. That's a miscarriage of justice. There's no way that Marine should have been charged in that case. No way.
Agree.
And because, well, anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. But I'm just New York City in particular is so upside down and backwards about just the whole aspect of what justice is, that I would not be surprised if he ends up. Is he in? What part of New York City did this occur? In Manhattan or where?
Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn. Okay, so I mean, of course, it's going to depend on who the DA's in that area. But if you've got the folks like Allen Bragg and those kind of people, this person better stand by, because they're probably going to get charged. And I think that's just disgusting. That's not the way it should be. You know, you can enforce the law by its letter. You can enforce it by its spirit. I chose for 33 years to enforce it by its spirit. Not everybody needs to go to jail. Not everybody needs to be charged, given the totality of the circumstances. So I'm hoping that the victim in this case does not get charged. And I haven't seen the video. Scott, have you seen the video?
No.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. So I don't know that I can make a declaration, but given what you've told us, it would appear to me that it should be taken to a grand jury. I mean, in Texas, all shootings of these types are taken to grand juries in most cases.
Mm.
and then the grand jury comes back with a no bill.
Yeah.
So we do that for police officers that are use deadly force in the line of duty. So the system should run its course, but in my estimation, just given what I know, what you've told us, I think either if it goes to a grand jury, then it should be a no bill, and really, there probably should not even be charges even brought forth under those circumstances.
Yeah. Hey, it's Jay. Jerks of any color, all the same. Crime is crime. Again,
Yep.
the reason I bring up color is because he was specifically picking on this man because he was brown skinned. And
Well, you know what? I mean, look, I mean, the only people that are going to make that an issue are those that have another agenda.
Mm.
So that's why I look at that stuff. And if in fact if he picked this victim out because he was Latino,
yeah. Well, it says
that's
here
a whole other issue. But really, it doesn't. To me, it doesn't make any difference.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
what the motivation is. It's always good to know, but in terms of being held responsible for it, it makes zero difference. Zero.
Mm. There we go. Someone said, are we talking about Riley? Yes, we are. We are now talking about Riley. So again, for the 15th time, this is a story that has gripped the nation. It is trending on Twitter right now. The person's name is Riley Strain. I know the COE is going to put up a photo of him in a minute. He's 6'5" tall, Scott Duffy, with you heard me right, Scott, 6'5" tall. That's a tall man with a slender build, blonde hair, blue eyes. And he was a University of Missouri college student visiting Nashville, Tennessee. It was a week ago today that he's out, like most college kids. They go to Luke Bryan's bar in Nashville, the famous country singer. And the latest reports is that they say that he was overserved by the bar, and he is asked to leave around 10 p.m. And he, in fact, leaves. He's there with friends. He leaves alone. And a week later, no one knows where Riley Strain is. You're an investigator, Scott Duffy. This is a whodunit. What do we start with?
Yeah, so, the questions that an investigator is asking, is this someone who left of their own free will? And when I say left, not the bar, but just the area, and decided I'm just going to disappear in thin air and I don't want to be found. Very low probability. In his state of, let's just say he is in a drunken stupor, he is absolutely minus a lot of his faculties that anybody, especially at that time of night, should have. So then the question is, okay, so now you've left and you're navigating cars, all sorts of hazards and waterways. And have you fallen? Have you are you hurt? But you're incapacitated. You can't help yourself, and so there's a dire search going on. Or in his drunken stupor, was he taken advantage of by robbers or whatever have you, and became victim of a crime? So that's ultimately what, and you have to look at what are the odds, where do the odds go for the most part to help your search, right, to locate him. And there are studies that have been done that talk about not necessarily young individuals, but young individuals that are impaired, and if there is either cliffs or waterways, other environmental issues, and then you stumble and you fall to your death, or you drown, there is a high likelihood that it is an accidental injury resulting in death. And and so now it's a matter of looking for this individual. So I don't really know the terrain other than some of the readings, making his way into, I guess, a wooded area where some homeless people have been interviewed and have said they've come across him, talked to him, seen him. So that gives you aid as to a point of travel. And so I imagine law enforcement at this point has figured, hey, the high probability is this. Let's try to locate him in the event that he is still alive but incapacitated and cannot help himself. So it's tragic all the way around, and especially as we're moving into a week that the the odds of finding him alive go down for all intents purposes.
By the way, I'm seeing many corrections at the mother. I saw an interview with the mom, but apparently the height is 6'7". So you add 2 inches to that from 6'5". That's a very tall guy, 160 pounds, very thin, tall man. From Wildfire, friend of the show, STS Nation member, community member. My brother and I looked around there Wednesday night, and a lot of homeless camps, but who knows? The Cumberland is right there too. Wow. So people are jumping in. Occam's razor is the simplest things are usually the answer. And here he was so drunk and disoriented. He fell into the river. His phone turned off and stopped pinging. Fil Waters, police have come out and said they do not suspect any foul play. There's no criminal investigation, but if this guy just disappeared off of some surveillance video, which we're going to show in a minute, hasn't been seen in a week, how do we know if we are, the Metro Nashville PD? How do we know, I don't know, that he wasn't taken by someone, that he wasn't harmed? How are we able to say that they're definitively saying no foul play involved? How are they able to say that?
I would have to presume that they have some kind of evidence that would tend them to lean to that conclusion. You've got, the first thing here about he was overserved. Well, that's just the prelim for the civil suit that's coming. We don't know that. We don't know how he acquired whatever alcohol he acquired, if he was with a group of people and they were all buying pitchers of beer and he was just consuming or whether he was being served individually. So all of that stuff, that's the first thing everybody wants to point out. And if he's asked to leave the bar because he's intoxicated, my curiosity would be, why did if he's with a group, I don't know the total background other than what you said here that's been put out there. Why would his friends just say, "Oh yeah, okay, Riley, we'll see you down the road," and perhaps but that's the story, right? But he was removed by people in the bar.
He left alone. His friends, I assume, stayed behind to keep drinking and hanging out. They were probably having a good time. And he didn't. They were staying at a hotel, and I've got the information down here. Again, no foul play suspected. A fraternity brother went to police the next day. They were all staying in the same hotel, a place called the Tempo Hotel. These guys all go back. They're obviously different levels of intoxication, and they go to bed they don't see him there, but they go to sleep for the night. And it's the next day where he doesn't return to the room. So later that day, which is a week ago tomorrow, they go to the police and report him missing. And that's how this all starts to unravel.
Well, so I'm just curious, did he have a cell phone with him? Did they try to track his phone?
Yep.
CCTV footage. I've been in Nashville. My son went to Vanderbilt, so we've been in Nashville a lot, down there on Music Row and where all those bars are and all that good stuff. And there's there are places down there where you could get off the rails somewhere, and we don't know that he's purposely missing. So I am, there's something that the police, that law enforcement knows, that's bringing them to that conclusion. And of course, we don't know what that is. But, and if it is, you know what? Gosh, if it's one of these weird things where he
Now,
has possibly been located and wants to remain, missing, I'm not sure how law enforcement would handle that. I don't know what, because if they have found him, they would have a responsibility to tell his loved ones that we found him and he's okay. I don't know. This is a kind of a mystery with very few clues. So I don't know what the possibilities are here. They could be, anything at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I have not seen this comment from Karen Yalaki. Homeless guy was seen this past Sunday wearing Riley's shirt. They can't find the homeless guy. I never read that or heard that. So STS, and they did track his phone, but Scott Duffy, if that is true, and I don't know, STS Nation, chime in, let me know if in fact a homeless guy was wearing his shirt. Not that I don't believe that comment, but I just like to get corroboration. But Scott Duffy, if in fact a homeless guy was wearing his shirt, that seems very suspicious. Does that change the dynamic, or does that just mean that maybe this guy was so drunk that he took his shirt off and the homeless guy happened to find it and put it on?
Well, maybe he gave it to the homeless guy.
Yeah, I would believe the latter, that if he's truly impaired, he's either taking his shirt off and tossing it. It's picked up by a homeless guy, especially if it's tossed in the encampment, or gave it to whoever this homeless person is. I would believe that, as opposed to the homeless guy walking up to a body, injured, asleep or whatever, and just taking it. I mean, any one of those is possible, but I would still go to it's nothing intentional. So
yeah, and there is, by the way, there's a very large river, the Cumberland River, that runs through Nashville. By the way, Phil's son has got to be smart, because Vanderbilt's one of the best schools in the country. Prayer for family and friends from Nana 617 here, 617. The shirt thing, as far as we know, has not been confirmed, but STS Nation is always on top of things. So I saw that, and I thought that was interesting. There's a quote here, Allie B from Tennessee. I'm so heartbroken. I've been looking for him every day. Allie, let us know what you're doing in the chat, and the COE will get it on screen. A lot of people think he, was obviously impaired, as Scott said, and may have slipped into this river. They've had dive teams and all sorts of teams out there, but it's been a week. The quote from the sergeant, this was yesterday, late afternoon. A lot of it now at this point is just filtering all of the information. We've been getting just dozens of Crime Stoppers tips every day, pretty much since this has started. And so it takes time to go through all those, scrutinize that information, make certain there could be a viable lead. A lot of them, as you can imagine, is just frivolous information. Scott Duffy, how complicated does it get with such a high profile case? We already had two people in the chat saying that they personally have gone out to look for this guy. So you can only imagine the amount of tips that they're getting. And again, this is all over the news in Nashville. It's all over the news nationally. It's trending on Twitter. The parents are down there. They are heartbroken. But how does it complicate the matter for law enforcement that's just trying to stay laser focused on finding out what happened to this guy?
Yeah, I think they're two different animals. I don't think they would. I don't think a lot of people offering to search would inhibit anything. I don't think a tip line being inundated. If the police have a good theory, and their theory, like Phil had said, they have some sort of evidence to indicate that, hey, we're looking for him, and our theory is this. And let's just say, for example, he fell and met and is incapacitated somehow. That now it's a full search. One helps the other. I don't see these two as working against each other. And law enforcement's very very capable of managing all this outside help, rescue, search, and so forth. So I don't see them contradicting each other or hurting each other. Especially if law enforcement is not looking at this as a homicide.
Mm. So there is some surveillance video. Let's take a look at one of the two clips. There's a few different angles. I'm not sure which one there is, but there is one where he's kind of wobbling around and almost hits a pole. I'm curious to get your guys' take on what you see as we play this video. Here we go. So there he is. Obviously looks.
Yeah.
And he's wobbling all around. Tall, tough to miss. In that shirt with a black colored pocket. This is the Cumberland. This is
the Cumberland River winds right through Nashville.
Yeah, so this is a river, but
is that a fast-moving river? Is it something that there's a strong current where he could?
I don't think it would make any difference, Scott, if he fall in the river incapacitated, whether it's moving fast or not. You know, we get bodies that show up, floaters that show up in the bayou in Houston all the time. And so the fact that you're inebriated and fall into a body of water, your concept of where you are is going to be lost pretty quick.
But to Scott's point, let's say hypothetically this is what happened, that he did fall in the river. Could he be 20 miles downstream right now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
the river's moving. I mean, whether it's rapid or not, if that's in fact what happened, there's no telling where that body may surface.
Yeah.
Wow. I've got a lot of follow-up questions. So, Fil Waters, we'll play some more video in a moment, but this police officer who's the spokesperson for by the way, if anyone knows anything, obviously, please call the Nashville Metropolitan Police Department. This officer, the sergeant, says, you are looking for anything that they might have dropped along the way. Anything that if they fell, it might have come out of their pocket, a wallet, a cell phone, something to that effect. So far, we have not found anything like that at all. So he's saying that they haven't found anything like that. What we do know is that, like yours truly, he was a bit of a mama's boy. Granted, he's 22 and I'm in my 50s, but he talked to his mom like 4 times a day. And he was FaceTiming with her just a couple hours before he was kicked out of the bar. And she said he was acting completely normal, which maybe the alcohol hadn't hit. But Fil Waters, it's a weekend right now. Where do you go? What do you do? Is this just a matter of, I mean, what do you do?
Well, this may be one of these cases where you wait. You're just going to be forced to wait. If they've tracked down, I mean, I'm a little struck by the fact that watching him on these videos and watching the amount of traffic that was present while he is, I mean, this guy's 6'7". It ain't like it's some, little guy walking down the street, and he is there. It's pretty clear he is incapacitated to a degree. I am struck by the fact that, and maybe somebody did, but that no one called 911 at that point and said, you've got somebody stumbling down the street here who looks like he's in distress, and get somebody to respond to that. So I'm a little struck, although I'm not on the other side of that. I'm not surprised because people don't want to get involved in stuff, but it's one of these things, especially, I mean, if they've done everything they can do with the phone, they've done everything they can do with the video, and in terms of a timeline of when he left that bar. And of course, they're going to be interviewing the people that were there at the bar with him. interviewing his mom, interviewing those people that would have been associated with him at that point in time. And then they've got this stuff out now that anybody that would have seen him, let's call it in and field all of those phone calls and run all those leads down. And I'm curious as to where he gets lost on the video. And if he's lost on the video anywhere near that river.
Here's another video. Let's look at this one. I think this might be the one where he bumps into the pole.
Well, yeah, that's the one
Yeah, so he kind of smacks himself into this pole.
So you see all these people here, though, and I mean, they're just going, well, look at that guy. I guess he's drunk. And
yeah, that's amazing. I mean, look at the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people just in frame right there. And obviously,
and it looks like he's taking a right to go down where it's got the road closed. So what I'm curious of is, where do they lose him on the video, and what is the proximity to the river?
Look how, I mean, he's obviously totally out of it.
Yeah. If that video, the one that we just saw, is after the video of him, what looks to be falling into the pole, I mean, it does look like he's holding his head. Is he bleeding?
Yeah, he hit his head. They say he did smack his head pretty hard. I mean, Scott Duffy, could he have suffered some sort of like concussion maybe, where he's even more out of it now?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely see him walking around, his head is up. He's obviously got that long stride. He's even running here. So that if other than seeing the part where he's falling into the pole here, or if that's a subsequent video, there he looks in dire stress. That
looks like the area where he takes the right.
Yeah,
the road's closed because there's no traffic down there.
These are different angles too. This is the one we just played, and then I'll play the other one. But that's where he hits. He does hit the pole, and he smacks his head, according to police.
It looks like a concrete foundation, and if he hits the side of that sign, I mean, you're talking some good damage, a good gash.
Right there, right, boom. Kind of speeds up there, but yeah, that's like a metal. The white pole is a metal pole, and then this is the one I played already. This is a similar angle. This is the same angle, I think, but then we switch it up. But that's right before he smacks himself into that pole. So, oh, look, Ali B says, I drive for Uber. I picked up some of his friends that night. Wow. And took them to the hotel. Wow. That's kind of crazy. So back to the friends, Scott Duffy, there's a 911 call made during this whole situation. And it comes from the friends. Saturday afternoon, 16 hours after Riley Strain is last seen, his friends, they go to the Central Precinct, which is on a place called Korean Veterans Parkway, and they want to report him missing. They knock on the door. They try to get in the door, but they can't get into the lobby on a Saturday. So they call 911. The 911 operator says, what's his name? They say Riley Strain. What color clothing was he last seen wearing? He was wearing jeans, boots, and a half black shirt, half brown, light brown. That is according to the 911 call. So they go out, Scott PD, once they find this out, and they check all the hospitals and all the jails. That's I assume that's standard kind of operating procedure to do that, Scott.
Yeah, especially after they probably had an initial interview, realized that there was impairment involved. So hey, okay, we can double check everything we can do, and that would include, is he in a cell somewhere drying out? Is he in a hospital? He's suffering from some sort of memory loss, doesn't know who he is, and so you would want to cover those bases. Those are rather quick and get you some initial information before you begin this. Okay, what's step number 2? Let's call out for a search.
Sarah Adams, he's already disoriented and falls in the river. He's completely disoriented. I think that's what everyone is obviously assuming. I don't want to perpetuate this rumor, but this is from Toy White, according to WSMV, which is a Nashville local station, that their headline yesterday was "Missing Mizzou Students Spotted by Homeless in Downtown Nashville." That's how this shirt story probably started to circulate, but I don't think there's been confirmation. And in case we forgot, Scott looks dapper today. Looks like a cute little leprechaun. Love to hug Scott today and maybe even pet his chinchilla, Chi-Chi. Where is Chi-Chi, Scott Duffy?
He's in his cage.
Anyone who just tuned in is like, what is going on? Joe wants to pet Scott's chinchilla, Chi-Chi. This is weird. Sounded really odd. Checked on the Fil Waters, you kept asking about this. They checked on his cell phone. There was a ping near a cell tower. So police contact Verizon. This is where your expertise comes in and mine quickly evaporates. Verizon said when authorities checked with Verizon, the company said it was no longer able to get a live ping because the phone was off at the time that they tried to locate it. The last live ping was reported between 9:55. This doesn't make a ton of sense to me, Phil, but the last live ping was reported last Friday, a week ago today, between 9:55 and 10 p.m. He was thrown out of the bar at 10 o'clock. Do you think, does it make sense that the minute he left the bar, he shuts his phone off? Like, does that make sense? I that's what it sort of implies. And why would you do that?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I am, Fil Waters. And that was an open-ended question. Why did he do that? Yeah. I mean, why would it seems weird?
Look, I mean, who knows? The kid is it's pretty obvious that he is incapacitated by whatever he drank or took. And who knows? Maybe his frame of mind when he stepped out of the bar, when he was told to leave, was, I don't want to talk to anybody. And he turned his phone off. I mean, there's a whole lot of possibilities there. He may have dropped the phone and it broke. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities about why that phone went off at around 10 p.m. when he was being tossed. He may have left it in the bar.
That's true. I always
someone turned the phone off and tossed it. I mean, there's a lot of explanations about what happened to the phone. I don't sense that. I mean, when we see him on the video there, that he's got the phone with him. That's my take, that he's even got the phone with him. I mean, I'm curious. He gets, and that's the part that the investigation you're gonna discover, is that what state. I'm sure they've got video inside the bar. So they're having to interview all these folks. They're going down and I'm sure interviewing wherever that path was that he went. They're going to canvass that area, and if that did take in some homeless areas, talk to those people, try to get a timeline on where this guy's last seen.
Phil, who is I don't even know, like what sort of team within law enforcement is conducting this investigation? Is it homicide? Who would be doing this?
Well, I don't know how Nashville PD is set up, their metro set up. I would imagine they have a detail or an investigative division that takes care of missing persons. Houston PD has that, and it only comes over to homicide when there appears to be some sort of suspicious circumstance surrounding why that person may be missing. So I've worked several cases that started out as missing person cases. The missing person detective decides that at some point in time that it's stepping over into the realm of homicide, then we're contacted and we'll run with it, or we'll run a parallel investigation with the missing persons detective. So I would assume Nashville has some kind of a setup like that. So at this point in time, and that's why they're saying here that they don't believe there's anything suspicious going on here in terms of why he's missing. So I would imagine that their missing persons detectives are still working this case. Now, they may be working in conjunction with homicide just to let them know that this is what we've got, and there may be a point in time where you're going to be brought into it. And I just don't know what their setup is. But right now, I would think it's still in the hands of missing persons detectives.
Now, Scott Duffy, I don't want to be sexist here in any way, shape, or form. However, let's assume Riley Strain was it's a gender neutral name, as they say. So let's say Riley Strain was a 22-year-old female who was 5'7", not 6'7". Number one, I think this would be an even bigger story just from my experience in the media. But number two, it would be a lot harder, I think, for police to say no foul play, right? Wouldn't there be suspicion that she's being held captive, that she's being held beyond her will, that maybe there's some sort of sexual deviance going on, that she could, like, wouldn't there be a million other things going on if it's a female? Why not with a male, that he could be being sex trafficked or a million other different things? Why is everyone jumping to the conclusion that, oh, he's just drunk and fell into the river? That's my bottom line question.
Yeah, I see what you're saying with regards to,
and I'm crazy and wrong.
So, okay, but you go with numbers, you more likely than not. So if you have a female, but in the same state or frame of mind, impaired, again, does she fall victim to somebody who's looking for an easy target, right? And so that I would say that's more of a possibility, as opposed to a male. Doesn't mean that the male cannot fall victim to a very similar set of people, person, whatever, who are looking to prey against somebody who's in a vulnerable state. But I think I would agree with Phil's earlier, and then not hearing the actual words, the statement from police that they are not looking at this as foul play. They might be saying, hey, secondarily, sure, it's possible, but until evidence leads us there, we're still just looking for Riley. But they might be holding something that gives them a clear sense that this is not a homicide investigation. This is not somebody who's come across any criminal means, but is truly fallen or whatever. I would imagine they have something that leads them to that, but I haven't heard the statement, so I don't know if the statement has openings for our investigation is now turned into a homicide.
Phil, this is I'm going to look at that in a second. But Phil, the bar already is getting a lot of criticism from Sarah Adams here. How can the bar be guilty of doing the over-serving and also punish him by kicking him? Here we go. Here we go. Are they not? I love it. Sarah, you asked the question, not me. Are they not the cause? Are they not the cause, Fil Waters? Look at this, Sarah Adams. You're right. Panties are being wadded right now. Look at him. I've never seen that long a head rub from Phil. That was an extended head rub.
With all due respect here, look, I work premise liability cases where property owners are sued because the plaintiff, something happened to them and they're trying to blame it on the property owners. And I will just tell you that a young man going into a bar, a college-age young man going into a bar with a bunch of buddies in Nashville who chooses to consume alcohol, whatever has happened to him in terms of his becoming inebriated and having to leave the bar, being asked to leave the bar because of that, that is not on the bartenders. That's what their job is to serve alcohol. And if there is someone that they're serving alcohol to, they do have a responsibility that if they see someone that they recognize is intoxicated, then they should, as policy, not serve those people any longer. That doesn't mean that that person is not going to be able to get alcohol with one of his friends. So blaming the establishment, unless you can prove, unless there's some sort of evidence that the bartenders were forcing these drinks upon them to make a buck, then in terms of laying blame on third parties for what the person in this thing the end result ended up being is just wrong. You know, we've gotten so used to blaming everybody else for the crap that we do, that we bring on ourselves. And look, it's way too soon to start making those kinds of accusations. So, and I'm sure, I have no doubt that law enforcement is looking at all of those aspects. When did they get to the bar? Did they start drinking before they got to the bar? I mean, there are many, many times where these people show up at these places and they're already drunk.
Look at Wildfire's comment right here. Pre-drinking was huge when I was young to save money at the bar. And I don't want to fuel rumors, but I've read in a number of different accounts that there's been an issue. I'm not saying that, I am not saying what I'm about to say happened, but there's been an issue in Nashville with drinks being spiked. Whether that happened, we don't know.
Look, Wildfire here is spot on. Look, I went to college. Scott went to college. Joel, did you go to college?
I did.
Okay,
I know you can't tell. I know you can't tell.
Look, I went to school in Stillwater, Oklahoma, at Oklahoma State University.
Go Okies.
My fraternity house was 1 block from the main strip with all the bars on it. And I can guarantee you that we would have a little bubbly, a little few toddies before we would leave to go down there. So I'm just saying that my whole point is that all of a sudden, oh yeah, it's the bar's fault, it's the bartenders, this, that. Good grief, get off of that crap. You know, we don't know what they drank before they went there. We don't know what he was drinking when they got there. We don't know who was providing him the alcohol. If he was walking up to the bar and buying it himself, if a waitress was bringing this stuff to a big table with a bunch of people sitting there, we just don't know. The bottom line is he chose to take that stuff, drink that. And I'm not trying to be harsh here or unfeeling, but he chose to do what he did. The bar said you've had too much, and they recognized that, and they told him to leave the bar. So he did. Now, again, my question is here, his friends, why did they let that happen without somebody going with him? They had to know how intoxicated he was. So if we want to point fingers here, there's plenty of people to point fingers at. But the bottom line here is he engaged in this activity, got off, and I mean, look, let's blame the people that were sitting in those cars while he was running down the street, banging his head into a post. Nobody called 911, apparently. At least there's been nothing released that there was somebody that called in and said, look, you got some guy that's, 12 feet tall running down the street, and he just fell into a post, and he got up, and he's bleeding and all that stuff. I mean, look, we can go right down the line here. Let's just blame everybody. So I really get tired. And yes, my panties are in a little wad. So I just get I get a little tired about hearing this kind of stuff, having worked these kinds of cases. Because when it ultimately comes down to it, the person that's responsible for what happens to them is the person that it happened to. or if there is something nefarious going on here and a crime has been committed, then it belongs with the person who did whatever they did to that person. So let's quit blaming everybody else. It's very simple. 1 + 1 still equals 2.
Blackwoodor, the Republic of Ireland. Joel party with Carmela. Leave him alone. She was out to dinner with us last week and forgot she was driving and ordered a mojito. I said, "Are you crazy? One mojito, you'll be plastered. You can't do that." She reneged on the order. Scott Duffy, before we play this, do you ever get as nervous as I do? Just imagine being Fil Waters' son. You made this decision, son. You were over 18, son. This was a bad decision. But the son went to Vanderbilt. The guy's he is got a good head on his shoulders, but I'd still be scared to be Fil Waters' son. COE, are we playing this? Is this something to play? What is this? She's trying to play TikTok video. COE, you want to jump in and let us know what you're doing here? Because I have no idea. Riley's being a
Yeah, you're just watching a video.
Oh,
it's like
I don't think there's sound. It's just a longer video, and this is by someone named Doing Time with Lindsay. Allie B from Tennessee sent this to us. It's a longer version of the video where it's not caught up, or it's not cut up. But the person here, and again, I don't know anything about Doing Time with Lindsay, captioned it about what they believe is going on. So speculation, but I'm just showing the long video.
He runs once the car is gone. Let's just watch this for a minute here. It's hard to see, but something is very wrong. Something changed. Riley face plants into the post. He seems to have been knocked out for up to 9 seconds. That could definitely be a concussion. Riley seems to be limping and holding his head in pain. Click to exit full screen. As Riley exits the next screen, I got goosebumps when I saw the same black car. I mean, there are a lot of people. I had no idea who this TikTok person is, and there are a lot of sort of conspiracy theorists out there. I'm not saying that this person is, but I haven't heard about a black car, so I just want to be careful with pinning it on some sort of black car. Police have not made any mention of a black car. It's hard to see this video, COE. This is Doing Time. There you can see him against the as Riley exits the next screen. This is the same thing here. All right. Well, we'll keep Scott Duffy while this is playing for a little bit. A lot of people have been asking, the bloodhounds, are the dogs out? Would you bring dogs out in this situation? Is that a necessity here to try to search for this guy?
Yeah, I'm not so sure on the dogs, especially in a urban setting there, and then it all depends what, there are some things that go into it. We've utilized dogs in different situations. You're talking about a day later, right? Did I hear you right? 16 hours before a 911 call.
Correct.
So
and that's because they couldn't get into the police department. Correct.
Yeah. But in that regard, and not I think the camera angle, the checking of hospitals, all that, and then I'm always interested in how somebody like this looks like a TikTok newscaster.
Yeah, I'm getting dizzy watching this, to be honest. This is the better video, but go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, it's I would not think a dog would do much. And sometimes dogs are just brought out just to give the family some sense of, okay, things are being done, because there's not a whole lot more than just checking. You might be utilizing dogs around some of the areas that they're checking, like the homeless encampment and so forth, just trying to get an idea. And it might even be then where, if you're talking a week later and they are doing everything they can. They might even bring out cadaver dogs if worst case scenario has taken place. Yeah, it's a tough call, especially that late in that setting. I would not think a dog would be of the greatest help at that point, especially with other things. Grabbing video is very good and tracking um, every step.
Jenny Price, Phil, is this something? It is an election year. We stay away from politics here, but I have to ask: would you be willing to run for president? They want you as president. That's something you've considered.
Ooh,
Be
whatever
cool.
I might consider, I can guarantee you that my wife would be the one making that final decision.
Phil, I
And
could
I
see you
can
as a
tell you
politician.
that it would be an unequivocal no.
You'd have to shave the goatee, Phil. And I couldn't. Scott, could you see Phil up there, State of the Union, addressing the nation? I could see it. A Marine.
Yeah.
It'd be amazing. I'd
Thank
be
you.
willing to be your press person. Look at this from Allie B. Joel, members of his family I met on Monday said they're willing to come on as a guest. Look, I'm not doing it for the clicks, but if they need help, 1,000%, I would have them on. I obviously want a good outcome here. I know that they are, trying to get the word out. Allie B, please pass along the info. Happy to talk to them, and it's their choice. If they want to come on, this is open for victims. So if they need to get the word out, the platform is theirs. Terry M says, love this channel. I truly hate wild speculation. There is a lot of wild speculation, which we have to rein in here. Phil, you were asking some other questions. So about the phone, the last ping, this is according to police. The last ping they had was off a cell tower near the Top Golf in Nashville, which is over on that side of the river. The radius is about 2 miles. So it doesn't give us a direction. It does not give us a direction of travel or more detailed information. Friends were able to check. This is something I don't even understand. They were able to check Riley Strain's Snapchat location. I didn't know that Snapchat gives location. I guess every app does. And his Snapchat location was somewhere around the Metro courthouse. They obviously went and checked there, but nothing. Police also said that they do not believe he used any kind of rideshare service, an Uber, a Lyft. How did they know that, Phil? How did they know that he didn't use an Uber or a Lyft to get somewhere?
Well, that's an easy question to get answered. I'm sure they contacted any Uber or Lyft or any of the car share companies, and nobody picked him up. I mean, that wouldn't be hard to verify one way or the other. So I just think, in reference to the dogs, in a general way, I do agree with Scott. I think in that, especially in that urban environment, it'd be tough. However, as just a matter of drill, which Scott talked about, that area that on the video, and I'm not sure at what sequence, is that the video where he looks like he goes down the road closed and he's on that abandoned street? Is that the last clip of where he was? Okay, makes it right there. No, not that one. Not that one. Not that one.
And he keeps going. I don't know
where
the
he's
answer.
walking down the street and there's like nothing there.
Yeah. I do not know the answer to that.
That one.
This one, yeah.
So I'm curious as to what the sequence is here on these videos. If this is the last one they have, I'm not so sure that putting a dog right there, where you would have the best chance of a good scent right there, and see if the dog hits on anything. And it may be for naught, but I've used dogs in missing person cases that came over to homicide because there was obviously something that was nefarious that happened. And now I will say, with full disclosure, never had a dog find that person. But we've used them because you get to the point, especially in a case like this, where use every investigative tool that you have available to you. And dogs are something that is available. And I would think in this particular situation, if I were to think about using a dog, I'd put him right there on that street where we know he is, and there's nothing else around that would destroy the scent. Now, the other problem you got is, do we know if it rained or anything overnight? I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen that would destroy, the dog's ability to pick up a scent. But just an interesting discussion about the dogs and the application.
Phil, I think you might have a comment on this. We all need to pay more attention to our surroundings instead of staring at our phones. Do you agree with this?
Amen, Anna Maria M. Amen.
There you go. I thought Phil might have something to add to that. By the way, Phil, I know this is a serious subject, but Fridays are a little lighthearted. And the minute you said dogs, I know how much you love Poppy and Nugget. When you were on scene and police dogs were used, would you take a moment to scratch them under the chin, or was it strictly business at that point?
Oh, absolutely not.
You would not.
No.
Mm.
Those puppy dogs belong to their handler.
Mm.
And you do not get within that perimeter or that space between that puppy and their handler. Even if you think you want to walk up and say, oh, that's the nice police dog. Trust me. And in fact, a little anecdotal story here very quickly.
Yeah.
When I was in patrol, we had a guy that we had chased out of a building, a burglar. This was at night shift. And so we're on the chase, and HPD's got a phenomenal canine unit. So we bring in the canine that we work with typically in that area. And we've got a sighting of the burglar running. And so everybody now is running. We've got a perimeter set up and all that, but we've got the officers on the ground there. We're now running to where we think this guy has run to. And I just remember, and which included the canine, and I just remember running around the corner of a building, and the first thing I see is one of my beat comrades. He is on the ground with his hands, his arms suspended on the ground like a push-up, and his legs are straight out, and the canine that we've got there is latched on to his leg.
Onto the police officer?
The police officer. Yeah, my partner. Yeah. In full uniform, the police dog has latched on to his leg. And so he is like in a full push-up mode with the canine, pulling on his leg. It was pretty funny.
How much
he didn't
of that?
think it was too funny.
Yeah.
And that image was just etched into my brain housing group. So whenever we talk about police dogs, and especially in the context of which you asked that question, that's the first thing that popped in my head. So never pet the nice police puppy dog.
Yeah, never do that. Calkin, oh, look at that. She does it to me every time. Literally about to start reading. I'm literally letting out breath to read the comment, and then she removes the comment. It's unbelievable. I don't even know what to do.
Did that say that they were like boobs?
I don't know what that said.
What did that say?
Service dogs and canines are like boobs. Don't touch without permission.
I like that. Who is that rescue puppy? That's a good one. I'll have to remember that one. That's a good one.
Yeah. Don't touch without. Scott,
that might be something that goes on a shirt.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, that's a good. That's a good meme. That has meme written all over it. Thank you, rescue puppy. By the way, I was thinking of Ski Hat Sarah, and then I saw her. So shout out to Ski Hat Sarah. Julie Frew is in the crew today. Shout out to Julie Frew. Here's Julie Frew right now saying that the COE is a glamorous painter. Yes, she is. Ned Smith is here. Sarah Adams got yelled at by Phil today, which is great. Sky Ricky, K9 Catherine from Maui. Sarah Adams says no means no. Sarah, better you get yelled at than me. Deb N, the Angel Rock with Laura Lee Potvin, and the list goes on. There's the Lifeboat. Tommy Scoville is in the house. So Scott Duffy, shout out to Tommy Scoville. Music City Wine and Spirits. It is located on Church Street. They heard about this missing 22-year-old. They didn't think that they had surveillance. They go back and check their surveillance. They were able to go back and find that that they did have video of him. What was interesting here is the employee is quoted as saying, there's so many, basically, I'm paraphrasing now, and then I'll get to the direct quote in a minute, but there's so many drunk kids on any given weekend night. Here's the direct quote. Usually someone is with that person to help them. They usually have someone with them to guide them, call them an Uber, take them to a hotel, not just let them be. Now, Scott Duffy, just going back to my female analogy, if this was a woman, maybe you would think that she left with a guy. It's obvious that he left alone here because we see him alone. But someone said, well, what if he had words with someone at the bar and someone was behind him? Would we have seen that on the surveillance video if somebody was, let's say, trailing him?
And there may be surveillance video that's not being, put out for public consumption. I haven't seen anything about the bar, like the very first time he's walking out, and if the bar has cameras, especially on the entrance, you're going to see how he arrives and how he exits, and they would be able to make a determination there. I mean, the video is great. It's tracking his steps. It's giving us a visual about his mental faculties. And those are clues, which I think law enforcement has then moved on to other pieces of evidence that, have led them to say this is a search for someone who may still be in the area. So, it's definitely law enforcement's job to look at all the facts and make a determination and to see how they can find him quickly. And so now they're beyond a week. So it's very tragic for the family, right? They want answers. They have lots of flooding of family and friends and strangers alike. But, going back to, this is Nashville. You could take any city street on any given night, especially where, it's a college town. And you have this played out, the exact same scenarios, and they make it home, or somebody is with them to help them get to a place of safety. And the friends, it may very well be that he goes into the bathroom and walks out, and the friends don't even know that he's exited the bar, and so are just, like anything else, consumed in their drinking. And
there it is, the bozo horn. There it is.
So it's there's all this.
Heard it? Really?
I imagine they have those answers, and then why he is on his own. I would surmise and would hope, and I imagine those friends are heartbroken themselves that they could not be there and somebody didn't run after him, and this would not be a story.
Obviously, the victims here are the parents who are suffering right now. We don't know where Riley Strain is. Hopefully he is somewhere safe, but it does not appear to be that way. His parents said, the stepfather, guy named Chris Whiteold, this is definitely the worst nightmare. I hope I'm pronouncing the last name correctly. And then goes on to say, Riley talks to us, whether it's me or to his mom. He talks to his mom 3 or 4 times a day. For him to go this long without talking is not normal by any means. Fil Waters, time is not an ally, right? The more time that passes, are the chances more likely that there will be a bad outcome.
Oh yeah. That's, I mean, look, I can't imagine how these folks feel. I've worked these types of cases. I've got a son of my own. I know how I would feel if something like this were to happen. It's unexplainable. And if he is not found and this continues to linger, I mean, that open-ended question could go on for years, and it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. So,
I didn't even
prayers to this family.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. There is a possibility that, let's just say hypothetically here that he fell in the
Well, Joe, you keep saying that, and I don't like hypotheticals.
I know. I'm pushing my luck.
Even the thing with the girl and all that stuff,
Yeah, I know, Phil. But let me ask you this, Phil, hypothetically. No, if he fell in the river, what are the chances that he will be found? Is there a chance he won't be found if he fell in that river?
There is a chance he won't be, but then again, there is a chance that eventually, at some point, unless, for the sake of this discussion, if he fell in the river and he gets hung up on something below the water line, then it's the chances of the body floating to the top are very slim. If he fell in and he's not encumbered in any way, then eventually the body is going to surface. And like I've already talked about, I made many what we called floaters in the bayous in Houston. And I would say for the most part, I would say almost 95+% of those were accidents. They weren't murdered in one location and the body just tossed into the bayou. So, and as morbid as it sounds, if that's what happened, I'm hoping that is what occurs, that body would surface just to bring a conclusion for the family. So it's, and I know that sounds very morbid, but that would be the conclusion I would hope would happen if that's in fact what happened. So always that possibility.
And Phil, do you believe in miracles? Is there a chance he walks?
Do I believe in miracles?
Yes.
Of course I do. Of course I do.
So there's a chance. Anna Maria says he will be found, followed immediately by Sybil, who says very big chance he won't be found. Is there a possibility of a miracle that he does turn up?
Certainly. Absolutely.
There we go. I look to Phil for these answers. Moving on to other crime stories. By the way, if anyone has any information, please contact the Nashville Metropolitan Police Department. Obviously a tough job ahead of them, and hopefully there is some sort of good resolution. And Allie B from Tennessee, we're thinking of you. And again, if the family needs our help, we will offer our help. And this is true. Joel is in rare form, but I am also sinning, I think. This story really bothered me this week, and I made the mistake of watching the video, and I don't suggest it. But Scott Duffy, a Missouri teenage girl. Her name is Kaylee Gain. Oddly, it rhymes with strain. We were just talking about. She's now fighting a brain bleed following a fight that broke out near a St. Louis County high school on Friday. I watched this video. She gets into a fight with another high school kid who's 15 years old. This 15-year-old girl picks up her head and slams it into the cement multiple times. The thud is something that I cannot unhear now that I have watched that video. Well, she's been hospitalized with considerable brain damage now and is literally fighting for her life. The question is, what do you do with the 15-year-old student that did this to her? Should that student, they want her now tried as an adult? Do you think that will happen?
Mm. Has she been charged with anything yet?
Yeah, I don't have the charges. I clipped it off, but she has been charged. She was charged with, I think it was assault and battery at this point. But it, could be much more severe and significant than that. I mean, it sounds like this young girl is teetering on the line between here and there.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I mean, just a sad situation. High school, right? It's
High school,
15,
high
high
school,
school. Yeah.
15 years
Mhm.
old, pretty
Yeah.
little girl, young
Yeah.
girl.
And these school fights are just I've seen quite a bit of video, especially seems like they're just ramping up across the nation, just these fights in bathrooms, these fights in and around hallways of schools. And they I know there it seems like there's not a solution on how to correct this. Trying to keep the kid in school, with fights that don't result in serious bodily injury, it's this vicious cycle. But here you have, is it two 15-year-olds, the victim 15,
Yeah,
the juror
15 and the
Yeah,
suspect
yeah,
15. I mean, this was brutal. She picked her up by her head and hair and
yeah,
like just slammed it
yeah.
into the pavement. Oh,
It's one thing if two people are fighting and then somebody falls, hits their head, and serious bodily injury, if not death, occurs. But when you're talking to 15-year-olds, yes, very young, um, and a lot of impulsive behavior, but at the same time, you're talking about this whether the fight happens in school or out on a street, it has to be dealt in that same fashion. And so uh, charges are brought, and this person shows that, hey, it's not somebody who just fallen as a result of a push, a shove, or a punch, but is lifted up and slammed. So you have to expect that serious bodily injury, if not more, can result in that. And so there is an intention, even if it's impulsive, there is an intention. And so yeah, the charge is 15, and then whether or not they pursue that person as an adult, especially if the unfortunate results in a death. It's tragic. It's sad. You're talking about two kids that shouldn't have been involved, but are involved, and so thereby, now you have this aggravated assault, and looks like you can, resort to something more.
and who knows? I don't even know if the fight was over. I'm sure it was something ridiculous, and now a
Yeah, they
life
usually
hang.
are. They
Yeah,
usually are.
and a life hangs in the balance over. Just take a deep breath. Although some crazy homeless guy yelled at me the other day when I was trying to go through a drive-through to pick up something, and I wanted to get out of the car and brawl with him. He would have killed me, but I decided not to do that. So tempers do flare. Future. I have no idea what this means. Was Fil an AGR at OSU? I have no idea what an AGR is.
No, I was not. AGR is a fraternity, and as a matter of
Hmm.
fact, AGR's fraternity house was at the end of our parking lot. I was a Lambda Chi Alpha, and the AGR house faced Washington Street, which was the beginning of the strip on Washington Street.
There you go. There you go. I've never been to Oklahoma State. I'd like to get there one day. I'd like to see it. Fil Waters, this is an interesting story because you were talking that there were all these people in the street. People become immune. So an Alabama woman, she was found dead on the street. What's interesting about this case, she was eventually shot. Her name is Janice Carter. This happened in Birmingham, Alabama. She jumped out of the car that she was being taken in at a gas station, I think not once, but a couple of times, and begged people to help her. But then her captors, she knew one of them, grabbed her No one did anything. One person called 911 at the very end, but she was literally crying for help, and really no one did anything until one person at the very end of this whole, because it was a sequence where she got out, ran in, they took her back in the car, they went back to the gas station. It was a convenience store gas station, and then she hops out again screaming for help. No one did anything. The bigger story I hear obviously, and this is horrific, is what does the public have to do if you see someone in distress? You see someone. We had a story last week where the woman voiced or mouthed something to police, and the police caught on to it and saved her. But if you see someone in distress, someone saying, help me, but maybe they're afraid. Like I was watching that subway video where the guy got the other guy's gun and shot him. There were a lot of people on that subway car. They just kept moving over a few seats. What does the public need to do if you see something?
Well, your first question was what did you just say? You just said, what should the public do?
Yeah, like if you see something.
Well, I think that, no, I understand the context, but the first thing you said is what is something along the lines of what is the public supposed to do?
Yeah, something along those lines. I'm scared now, Scott. But yes, Phil, something along
Well,
those
the answer
lines.
to that question is nothing. There is no law that requires that the public, if they see something going on, is required to take any action, period. So, I mean, in that context, nobody has to do anything.
What should you do? Like if you're at a 7-Eleven and you run in to get a bag of peanuts and you see a woman being dragged by her hair into a car, what should you do?
Well, that's an individual decision that each person has to make. If it were me, it'd be guns up and trying to stop whatever from happening is happening. But the regular citizen out there that witnesses something like this, the first thing they need to do is get on that phone, call 911, and describe to them what is happening, and try to get all the descriptors they can off the car, off the suspect, the victim, license plate if you can, so forth and so on. So that's the minimal thing that someone should do. Now, to put themselves in harm's way, to try to physically take some sort of action, that's on the individual to make that decision. And we've seen cases over the years where people of all shapes and sizes and flavors have seen something happening that they knew was wrong and took an active role in making it stop, terminating it. And some of those folks have lost their own lives as a result. And then some of those folks have been fortunate enough to save another person's life or save some sort of serious bodily injury from occurring on that person. So it's an individual decision. Each person is going to make their own decision a different way. And, but in terms of any obligation, nobody's got any obligation to do anything.
Fil Waters, if it was you, by the way, Black Widow, 2 comments on this from me. Number 1, you look like an assassin from a James Bond movie in your photo. I like that.
Who does?
Black Widow from the Republic of Ireland.
My partner.
Oh,
yeah, she kind of does. Yeah.
Yeah. My partner said Joel is insincere. Tell your partner to. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. Tell him I love him, and I meet hate with love. And tell him that I am.
What does that even mean?
What
does that mean?
I don't know. They're bickering in Ireland over my sincerity or lack thereof.
Well, I would say that person has no freaking sense of humor. That's what I would say.
Ned Smith
go back and drink some green beer.
Ned Smith. Oh, by the way, yes. Happy St. Patty's Day. I'm tempted to stay in my home with the doors, windows locked. I am too. Fil Waters, in that particular situation with your beat police instincts, if you see a woman being dragged into a car, hypothetically, Would you follow? Would you give chase, Fil Waters, as a civilian in this day and age? You personally, you.
If that's where I was in that particular episode, yeah, I'd get in my car and I would trail them. Sure.
Mm. Mm. Look at this.
And I'd get on the phone and I'd be calling my buddies and here's the plate. Here's what's happened. Here's where we are. It'd be just like calling in a pursuit when I was in a patrol car.
Could STS host a show with self-defense tactics and ideas for viewers? Would make a great show. Should we carry? So Jennifer Koffendorfer, a retired FBI like Scott Duffy, this is what she does. She trains women in self-defense tactics. We should get her on the show. Great idea. COE, put that on our list, on our put that in our Google Doc that we don't have, but we should have. This next story, Scott Duffy, another blight on our society, another horrific case. Most of them are. This was what police and authorities in South Dakota are calling a public execution. It's a beautiful young woman, Esther Wolf. She was shot and killed in Rapid City, South Dakota on February 22nd. A guy named Ezekiel Mayweather is charged with aiding and abetting a murder. The alleged shooter, a guy named Arcadius White, he was arrested a week after the shooting. Now, authorities claim that this guy Mayweather put this sort of hit out on her, literally shot in the head in public because of a misguided belief that this young woman was responsible for the death of his own brother. Police determined that the death of Michael Mayweather, the brother of this other Mayweather, that he actually died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So this brother committed the S word. He did that. And then he goes and has this woman killed. And he had it done on this person who unalived himself, had it done on his birthday. My question to you, and I ask this often, what the hell is going on in this world? What do you think he was thinking? I mean, this guy unalived himself. Was it he just couldn't get over the fact that somehow she was associated with his death and had to eliminate her? What's the psychology behind this? I read this. I was like, what is going on?
You have a psychologist on the show?
Yeah. Phil, what's going on with society, Phil? Open-ended question.
Well, you know what my answer is, Joel. You want to get this stuff stirred up all up again?
No.
You know, I mean, it's very short at this point. It's sin, and we're living in a fallen world, and that's it. And it's just getting, when you think you've heard the one last crazy story, then something else comes along and obliterates that one. So yeah, that's the crux of things. And until people start to realize what the answer is, then we're going to be in that fix.
Cynthia, Joel, do you realize you ask a question 5 different ways before you let the experts? Yeah. You know who I learned it from? Anderson Cooper. I was yelling at the TV. The guy takes nine news cycles to spit out a question. Watch Anderson Cooper one day. I was watching him last night. I was screaming at the TV. That's why I'm doing it today. During what I call regular shows during the week, I tend to spit out questions much faster. But it's also the fact that I'm afraid Phil is going to yell at me, so I have to ask it 5 different ways so he can't pin me down to saying you asked a question one way. I can say, well, look, I asked it 4 other ways. Joel, can you find some good stories to share? They're coming. Don't worry, Mandy. They're coming. This story, oh boy, this is going to get Phil going a little bit, I think. But this is what I've dubbed the fatal kiss. Richard Sotka, he's 49 years old. He had a girlfriend. He went and took a shower. He comes out, and the girlfriend is kissing another woman. He goes into an absolute rage, stabs them both, murders them. They say he snapped, and They arrested him for homicide. Now, this seems like a strange case, Fil Waters. He goes in, he's got the girlfriend over, she's got a friend, gets out of the shower, they're kissing, and he snaps. I have to be careful with what I say here because the COE is listening. Other men, let's just put it this way, other men would have a different reaction, but this guy snapped and killed both of them. Your reaction, very open-ended.
Well, let me clarify something. He goes with his girlfriend to whose house?
He's in his house.
He's in his house.
He's with his girlfriend, and
with his girlfriend,
and she has a friend over,
and she has and who is a girl as well.
Correct. Now he goes to take a shower.
He goes to take a shower,
and he comes out.
I'm wondering why he's going to take a shower. That's kind of so.
Oh boy! This is a good one. He comes out.
We can get off in the, that would be my first question: is why is he taking a shower, and why are they still out there? And then he comes out, and they're swapping spit, and then he decides he's going to kill them both with a knife.
It was another woman. Yeah, right here. You see Rosie Woods.
Okay, well, there's a million stories in the big city. This is just one of them, and there's always a backstory. So my curiosity is what is the backstory to this? This sounds like a menage a trois thing that got way, way, way out of hand. And
well, in fairness, Scott Duffy, it makes it seem, and this is just by the reporting that I have seen, that Ned Smith says this dude's panties were more than just wadded. That's for damn
well,
sure.
He was in the shower, so I'm presuming he didn't even have his panties on.
Yeah, he probably did not. There's a question here that, but Scott, the reporting that I have seen on this case is that it was a very simple kiss. Like he came out and two women are kissing, and he just went into an absolute rage and started basically just hacking them with a knife. Again, you're not a psychologist, you're a leprechaun, but what do you make of this behavior? What do you make of this behavior?
Is this a real story, or are you setting this up?
No, this is a real.
It sounds like a setup to me, Scott.
This is a real story. I mean, this is an absolute real story. This is true. These are
Scott, just talk about your lucky charms.
Yeah.
Are we changing the rating on this show? Are we?
Yeah. Let me go to Phil on this. Regina and Hollis crime chat. Is it that, Phil, is it that the world is becoming more evil? By the way, some women in the chat said, how can you guys laugh? So I apologize for laughing. Is it that the world is becoming more evil, Phil, or have we all become more aware of it due to accelerated, that's an interesting way to put it, AAC, accelerated available communication. I like that terminology.
That's a great question, and my answer to that would be both. Because in the Bible it says that the devil is the prince of the air. So I'm just going to tell you that you can take air and extrapolate that into our communications network. So I would say that's a great question, and my answer to that is both.
For those who are watching, this is usually the part of the show where it really goes off the rails. So I'm giving you a warning. Expect to see our chat go from 1,500 down to 3 any moment. Sherry's News, friend of the show, pointing out that Scott is beat red, not green. By the way, I'm horrible with these things. You know, I blocked out a lot of my childhood. Like, I don't think in fairness to me, I lived in Israel from 3 to 5. And so I don't ever recall watching Sesame Street or any of these shows. Like that part of my childhood, maybe I have to go to a psychologist. I don't know why, but it says Scott is beat red. And immediately I thought, what happens when green, because he's a leprechaun, mixes with red? What color does green and red make? Is that yellow? Scott, Phil, do you happen to know?
Right. Green, and I think I just did this.
My kids would probably, Judah Mack would probably know, my 4-year-old. How can you guys not know? I thought I was the only one that didn't know these things. STS Nation, when you mix green and red, is that yellow? Hold on.
What makes orange?
Someone says purple.
Oh.
Someone says brown. Black Widow says brown. She's an artist. I trust Black Widow, even though I don't like her partner.
Yeah.
Black Widow, I better have a word with your partner. Unless your partner is a female. I didn't think about that. Then I'm not going to have a word with her. Then I'm staying away. Okay, so this is the part of the show where things usually fall off the rails. Two more quick stories. Fil Waters, a 43-year-old man, he was arrested on suspicion of battery and other charges. We hear about that all the time, but what made this particularly interesting is when he was booked for the crime, when he went and had his fingerprints taken and all that. His legal name is Deez Nuts Kroll. Deez Nuts, Deez Nuts Kroll. Deez
Nuts? Is he talking about his cojones? What's he talking about there?
He legally changed his name to Deez Nuts. So he told police officers he got in a brawl. He got into a big fight, speaking of fights, outside a bar. Police come. Two people were reportedly hanging around. This brawl ensued, and he's taken. I want to say this is near Milwaukee. Police said he was talking in circles. But Fil Waters, what would you do if you apprehended an individual and found out that his legal name was Deez Nuts Kroll, Kroll, Deez Nuts Kroll? And for full disclosure, we have someone in the chat whose name is Daddy Short Nuts, but he tells us that his son gave him that, his young son. So if J-Mac came home one day and said, "Hey, your daddy," but what would you do collectively as a homicide unit to hypothetically, again, Phil, you arrest someone, God forbid, for a homicide, and you bring him back to the station and you find out his legal name is Deez Nuts. And then you knew you had to go in the interview room and say, Deez Nuts, tell me what happened. I come in here with an open mind. What was the last blah, blah, blah? Would you be able to keep a straight face, Phil? What would you guys do in the police house?
Well, I'm sure his real name is something like,
Mark
Clarence Johnson. Well, I mean, it always is. And it sounds like he's trying to be some sort of quasi rapper dude or some such thing. I mean, well, that I would do with him what I would do with anyone, which is introduce myself as Fil Waters. You can call me Phil. And what would you prefer I call you?
And if he said, my name is Deez Nuts, what would you do?
Well, I would probably know that before I ever walked in the room. I just want to know, what do you want me to call you? And if he says, yeah, I want Deez Nuts, well, then you're kind of stuck with what you asked for, right? So then I think I might feel more comfortable calling him D. I might say, well, would if I called you D, would that be okay? And likely the response would be, yeah, that's fine. So only because I just don't know if I could keep myself from laughing every time I said Deez Nuts.
What I would say to have actual.
So I, because I'd be thinking in my head, Deez Nuts. Are we talking about? Whose nuts are we talking about here exactly?
His, but it's spelled.
These nuts is kind of generic. So, are you talking about somebody else's nuts? But you're talking about these nuts. So I don't even want to get in that discussion. So I think I would.
Let's veer off of that for a moment.
I would refer to him as D. I think would probably be the easiest way out.
And by the way, it's Deez Nuts.
Of course,
Nut with a Z at the end of the
Of course, it is.
Annie K says, Scott, in your professional capacity, were criminals surprised at your mild demeanor and personality?
Oh, I did have a couple of personas. So, but for the most part, I would say I was somewhat mild-mannered. And that's how I conducted my interviews. So it's, but on the street, I did have a different persona.
You did?
I did.
Tell me, what was the difference on the street? Much more tough?
Oh yeah, I mean, it as if I needed to get into it, but ordinarily in the interview side, yes, I'm just the way I am now.
And
But
would your they want to know if his brother is doze nuts. It's a good question. Scott Duffy, I'm curious about this. You just piqued my interest. So, did your partners at the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, did they know these two sides of you? Like, did they know that when you're in the interview room, you were calm Scott, soothing Scott, as you become known here at SGS, but then in the streets, you were a maniac. Did they know these two sides of you?
I mean, not a maniac, but yes, they did. Absolutely. I did have and where and so my meek and mild manner, if you want to call it that, does change in the classroom too, because I don't want these kids falling asleep. So I
Mm.
do have there. I've been nicknamed Scotty 2 has come out to teach the class.
Ooh, Scotty too. That's interesting. Have you ever smacked someone? Mrs. Fig in 4th grade hit me on the knuckles with a ruler. That happened today, Mrs. I would have sued Lafayette Elementary School for 85 million. But Scott, have you ever smacked someone on the knuckles with a ruler in your class?
No, no, I would not be employed today.
And what happens? This is look at this, Scotty 2. What when Scott? Look at this. People are intrigued now. Look at this. Ooh, Scotty 2. This is like Clark Kent turning into Superman. What happens when Scotty 2 comes out?
Oh, I just try to keep their attention many different ways. So I am animated.
Mm.
I'm moving all of this is tough for me to sit still in a chair.
Is
It's
it? Is it?
it is, yeah.
Are you like an adrenaline junkie? Like, are you the kind of guy that would you jump out of an airplane, for example?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I think I fantasize about it, but I don't think I would do it. Have you done
It's
it?
not
Phil?
that bad, Scott.
All right, maybe
Phil, have you done it?
Oh yeah.
You jumped out of a plane?
Yeah.
You got to understand, these guys are serious type A alpha males here. They do crazy stuff. Scott, what's the craziest thing you've ever done?
Huh.
Like, what do you, Scott? What do you do? Like, are you one of these guys that can't really sit still during the day? Like, are you moving around all day long?
Yeah, I try to move around. Yep.
You do?
Yeah. Yeah, I like I'll pace.
You will.
Do a lot of I walk a lot, so we,
Does your wife tell you to stop pacing in the house? Like, does she know?
No, we're out and about ourselves. We'll when she gets home, we'll do our regular walk. It's quite a
You've really intrigued. Look at this. You've really intrigued STS Nation. Has Scotty 1 ever met Scotty 2, and do they get along?
Well, that's good. That's a good one.
Scott, they want to know this. I want to know all these. Astra, are you ADHD, Scott? Do you have trouble?
It's a good question. I've always asked myself that. So I
think we're all that way. What do you think it is, Scott? Scott, I mean, like, would you be able to, let me ask you this. Would you be able to meditate? Would you be able to sit quietly in a room for 30 minutes with just your thoughts, or would that be a difficult thing for you to do?
Yeah, I used to, in my prior law enforcement days, that's what we did. I spent quite a minute, and it was very, very relaxing. I can meditate. I do, but I will say I do a lot of praying throughout the day while I'm moving about. I'm not in a cell. I'm not. Yeah.
You got to enjoy your freedom. Allie B, which personality does the wife like more, 1 or 2? We've really gotten to a new level with Scott here, something we've just never known. We always thought it was mild-mannered, sensitive Scott, but now he informed us there's a Scott 2. Which one does the wife like more?
Oh, it's a good question. I don't. You know what? Scotty 2 doesn't really come out much in my everyday life. Just my teaching.
This last story is quite a story. Fil Waters, What was the condition of Houston Police Headquarters? Was it well kept? Was it maintained nicely?
Well, we've got several different substations around the city. I worked at 1200 Travis. Homicide before was at Central, and it was the main police station for decades. And the surroundings were pretty abysmal. And then they got moved out to a southeast substation, which was a better set of circumstances. And then
look at this. Look at this. Happy St. Patrick's Day from STS and the best leprechauns.
That's a good one.
Definitely sending this to look at. I don't know what's better. Scott pouring the liquid. Is that a bowl of cereal? Is that like Lucky
that's gold
Charms?
coins.
Oh, gold coins. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And look at Phil's outfit. I'd
We're at
give
the end of the
anything
rainbow.
for. What would you give to see Phil driving his Ferrari in that outfit?
Yeah.
I'd give anything. Scott, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to share this with you.
Love it.
Yeah. I don't even know what we were talking about. You were Phil, you were talking about the police department.
Oh, and then we moved to 1200 Travis, and it was the old National Gas Building, I think it was. I think the city bought it for, like, it was a big white elephant. I think they bought it for $1 or whatever. And then once they finally got all the asbestos out of the building, then they moved us in there. And I mean, it was fine. It was fine. You know, we all had our little hooches and new carpeting and all that stuff. And so it was fine. Although they need to build a new main police facility. I mean, there really is a need for that, and but it hadn't happened as of yet. But yeah, I wouldn't complain about the conditions under which I worked in terms of location, office, and that kind of thing.
Sarah Adams, Phil's mad because Scott is sitting on the pot of gold. And then it says, look, Phil's about to do a jig, an Irish jig. And he did say that he's part. Look at this. Ned Smith says, Phil's bark, this has nothing to do with the meme, is way more fierce than his bite. Phil wasn't sure if it was, Jen says hooches. That's what old timer cops call their cubicles. Hooch has an other meaning, Phil. I'm sure you know that, like a hoochie mama. Am I allowed to say that? Sarah Adams. Okay, so this last story, Phil, that's why I ask, is not the same story in NOLA, in New Orleans. The New Orleans Police Department is now infested with rats at the headquarters. And what's fascinating about it is these rats have now gotten into the evidence room and are eating the marijuana, and they are incredibly high. On top of high rats, they have the building is overrun with cockroaches, mold, defective elevators, and out of order bathrooms. Police Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick confronted the city council members and said, and I quote here, the rats are eating our marijuana. They're all high. Between rodent droppings on officers' desks, widespread maintenance issues, and hazardous mold infestations, she said people applying to the police department are not any longer being able to be brought to headquarters because the building is a huge turnoff. Phil, what would you do if you were running the NOLA Police Department? And have you ever seen a high rat?
I can't say that I have. What city is this?
New Orleans. New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
I say New Orleans.
New Orleans has always had problems, always. So that's just another problem. But that's a pretty amazing place. I went to New Orleans so many times when the Catricians came over and all that good stuff. And I'm telling you,
Never heard that term. Did you say Catricia? You mean like Katrina people?
yeah, the Katrina people. that came over.
I never heard it phrased that way.
And they, I could tell you all sorts of stories about that part of Houston homicide investigations. But yeah, they got a lot. I've been to that town more times than I ever care to be. And if I never see New Orleans again, it'll be too soon.
I don't want to be controversial, but I sort of feel New Orleans is the one city in America, and I apologize to anyone who's watching from there. Please forgive me in advance, but it is the one city where I feel like I could be. Miami's not far off, I'll say that, but New Orleans is the one city where I feel like I could be killed at any moment, anywhere in that city at any time. Only been there for work trip. I actually covered the Super Bowl there, but I've been there for a bunch of work trips, and so I was only there for days at little short trips. So I wasn't in other neighborhoods other than like the downtown area. But
let me put a little caveat to that. So New Orleans is a great town. I mean, great food, the people, great people. But in terms of the people running that town, they are a bunch of freaking idiots. And they have been the biggest problem with the city of New Orleans are the people the politicians running that place. And so, and it was a whole different, they operate. Of course, I'm looking at from the perspective of law enforcement and what we had to deal with when that event occurred, when the Katrina occurred, and how we got such an influx of those folks. And I can tell you that our homicide rate went up exponentially the minute those folks started flowing over into Houston. And the mayor at the time decided he was going to house all these people in the Astrodome. And I can just tell you that when they were bringing busloads of folks in, the first thing that we had to do was there were dumpsters set out outside of the dome. When they got off the buses, we would go in then and collect all the firearms, knives, dope, crap that had been left on the floor of the buses to dispose of in the dumpsters.
Wow. There
were things happening on the floor of the Astrodome, sexual assaults, all manner of things. It was unbelievable, the things that we saw in there. And this was the stuff that was brought from New Orleans. This group of folks that came over. And in fact, I think that was in August of 2005 when that occurred, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you by November in Houston, Texas, on Thanksgiving holiday, that 4-day holiday, we had 19 homicides.
Wow. What do you do? Hold on. What do you do when there's 19 homicides?
Well, I will tell you this. So the homicide rate went up 05, 06, 07, 40%. We were going up my first few years in homicide. We were averaging, I want to tell you, between 285 and 300 homicides a year. When that happened, homicides went up over 400 a year. And we had to form a separate murder squad, of which I was on, that addressed only gang murders and Katrician murders. So that's how horrible those conditions became in Houston.
Wow.
As a result. And of course, the murder rate, homicide rate in New Orleans went through the basement. And it was only until we started, and they operate under Napoleonic law. So if you don't make a case in New Orleans within 60 days, you get kicked to the curb. You're out. And that doesn't happen in Texas. So it was always very humorous when we would put these people in jail for murder. And that 60-day mark hits, and they're wondering why they're still sitting in jail.
Mm.
So it's kind of like Welcome to Texas. So once
Wow.
we started putting them in prison, and I think the governor then was Blanco, she started doing the road home. Then our homicide rate started to decline. And by around, I want to tell you, 2010 or 11, excuse me, we had under 200 homicides for the first time in something like 30 years or something. And so that, people will ask, why do homicides go up? Why do they come down? And so forth and so on. And I've never been able to come up with any kind of a formula why that happens. It ebbs and flows.
Phil, look at this comment.
I can tell you from that period of time between 2005 and 2007, I can tell you exactly why the homicide rate in Houston, Texas went through the roof.
Look at this comment, Phil. If you're not already worked up, Ada Shaw says, can Scott Duffy please speak?
Sure, go ahead, Scott.
Once again, we're getting berated. But Fil Waters, I have a question for you. Could you ever are you allowed, you said 19 homicides in a week. Could you go to more than one homicide scene in a day? Is that possible?
Yeah, it's possible. Sure. Yeah.
Wow, that's insane.
Within a 24-hour, 36-hour period. But yeah, we were carrying 3 and 4 cases, homicide cases, each pair of us, and at that time we had like 80 detectives, so we were carrying, a month. Made a lot of money in overtime, but it was quite a deal.
That's Ferrari money right there. Ferrari OT. Scott Duffy, would you guys get the FBI? The feds are a little more tight. Would you get you get a lot of OT working for the FBI?
So the in the FBI you get paid for overtime. It's built into your salary, and which averaged out to like you do a 10-hour day, and then anything you worked beyond that, you didn't get paid. So it was just a matter of your supervisor working something out. They might tell you to go leave half a day or something. I mean, so for example, at 9/11, we worked minimum 12-hour shifts every day, no day off. And then it would, because just the way the laws works, you're not being paid overtime, but then the FBI would work out something that they try to. But no, you're paid overtime, and that's it. Whether you work 10-hour day or 15-hour, 12-hour day, you're paid the same.
It's like TV news. In TV news, you are considered to be doing them a favor, so they can work you to the bone. And then they're like, every once in a while, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, take a day off." Meanwhile, Phil is buying multiple Ferraris. So who's got the last laugh there? Scott Duffy, a final question for you before we do a quick wrap up, because this has gone way over the expected time. But Scott Duffy, oh wait, this is who's putting that question in? You don't need to know these guys' salaries. Scott Duffy, has Chi-Chi the chinchilla ever chewed on marijuana? And if so, what was his reaction?
No, I can tell you no.
No.
But he did have a prior owner. I have no clue what happened in that household.
Wait, what happened? So you really? How long was Chi-Chi with the prior owner?
Probably a few years. I mean, he is a rescue chinchilla. There is such a thing.
How long does a chinchilla live for?
I am told 20 years.
Wow. And do we know how old Chi-Chi is?
No.
Don't tell me 19, please.
No, I think he's under 10. We've had him now. Oh, I feel like we've had him a good 5 years. So I don't think he was much older, like 4 or 5 years before that. It's probably in that 10, 11 range.
Black Widow wants to know if his real name is Cheech.
Cheech and Chong.
This is a good suggestion. STS Friday show should be called Phil's Boxers in a Pinch. It's an interesting title. It's a little long. And last question, Scott. Have you ever seen a high rat, not a chinchilla, but just a rat walking around high?
I can't say I have. I've seen plenty of rats when I would go into New York.
Mm.
Whether they were high or not, I couldn't tell. They seemed disinterested in anybody around them.
There are pics of Chi-Chi. He's actually been on the show, but I'll have Scott send me one, and you can follow me on Instagram at Surviving the Survivor. That's where I post all the serious stuff. I'll post photos of Chi-Chi, the chinchilla. Scott says, oh, wait, Scott, you're killing it. Probably not the best expression for guys that deal with homicides. Toronto, Canada. Carmela, that's my mother's name. Carmela Corleone. Is this a real name? This is The Godfather. Carmela Corleone. Anyway, I think we've hit the end of the road here. Amazingly, there's still people watching. Fil Waters, the man of structure. Is it hamburgers on the grill tonight once again?
It is.
I'm worried about Fred's nares. We started with that. We're ending. I have to make sure he was fine. It was just weird. He started like making kind of weird noises at the vet. I think he does it just to piss the vet off, but he's fine. Anyway, I'm just expressing my own angst about Frederick Morris Roosevelt Brown. Scott Duffy, once again, we started with this, but I have to end with this. St. Patty's Day. Tell me your day on St. Patty's Day. By the way, before we get there, have either of you been down on Fremont Street in Las Vegas on St. Patrick's Day before? There's little people dressed like leprechauns that dance on the bar tops. It's a magical experience. Scott or Phil, have you ever been to Vegas on St. Patty's Day?
No.
No. Okay.
I've never been to Vegas, period.
What? Are you serious?
I have to go. So
I'm gonna take you. I'm gonna get UFC tickets. We'll go to a UFC fight in Vegas. We'll get into fights on the street. It'll be fun. Look at this for Fred's Vet Fund. Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Fred appreciates it. Scott Duffy, walk us through St. Patty's Day, and then we'll say goodbye. I promise.
Well, being that it's a Sunday, it will be so I can tell you the earlier. I enjoy dressing up. I enjoy having green. But it's Sunday, so it will be mass first, and then my oldest, who is home, I'm thinking of taking him out and seeing something early before he heads back off of spring break. So we may go try a little bar hopping, very local. But we don't stand in line, so we'll see how it is. The days of bar hopping early in the morning. So I used to get off the night shift, at 8 a.m. and then the squad would go right to our favorite Irish pub called Ghislaine's, which is no longer there.
At 8 a.m. in the morning?
8 a.m. Sure.
Wow.
Be fed breakfast by our good owners and bartenders who loved good old Lower Merion PD, and then the day would go by just like that. It's amazing. So,
what time would you go to bed when you were working the night shift?
So I tried a couple of different ways. I tried staying up because you'd have to be back. So I would try going to bed first and then get up like 2 or 3 o'clock and then just try to get into that mode. Then I've tried staying up until I hit a brick wall, maybe till 1, 2 o'clock, and then try to sleep. I mean, your body's really thrown off because that's just a week. We were constantly working. I never worked a permanent shift. And
like, you mean you'd switch off days and nights? You'd
every week we switched to shift. So, and we work against the clock. So you started on a midnight shift, went to the evening shift, which up to midnight, and then you're 8 in the morning.
I remember my first shift in TV news. I had to be in at 2 in the morning, and I was like, "What the hell have I got myself into?" And this is a true story. What I'm about to share at the tail end of this show. When I first started, I was still living in New Jersey, and I was commuting to MSNBC, which was in New Jersey. and I'm driving to work on a Saturday night at like 12:30 in the morning, and I'm on the New Jersey Turnpike, and I see a car in front of me, and it's got the nozzle from the gas station in the gas tank with the rubber hose in the back. He ripped the hose off of the whatever, never took it out from the gas station, is driving down the New Jersey Turnpike that way. Fil Waters, if you saw that and you were a patrol beat officer, would you pull that person over?
Say that again.
Let's say you're in Houston circa 1997 and you're on a main drag in Houston, and the car in front of your patrol car has the nozzle from the gas station in the gas tank with the rubber hose behind it bouncing up and down. Would you pull that person over?
Well, yeah, on law enforcement, we'd call that a clue, right? So, yes, probably so.
What would be the boy, this show is really deteriorated. But what would be the like what would you when you pulled them over, what would you say to them? Like what would be the I don't know, the accusation or whatever. What would be the probable cause there?
What would be the probable cause?
Yeah.
Well, there's certainly a reasonable suspicion that some crime may have occurred, since they have the nozzle of a gas hose stuck in their car. So that would be, I think, reasonable suspicion to pull that person over. Might even be a good probable cause as a piece of evidence. But yeah, I think I'd want to have a chat with them.
Interesting.
Because you got to find out where the hose came from, right? So that would be the next question as to, are there any calls for service? They check on the MDT, check on the computer there that in the car. Are there any calls of a theft from a gas station where the nozzle has been ripped off of the gas pump itself? So, yeah.
I'll never forget that moment. Ida Shaw with a great comment. Time to call it quits. On that note, love you, America. Love you, Houston. Love you, Philadelphia, Delaware, of course, Nashville. Let's hope they find Riley Strain. And do you believe in miracles? Let's pray for a miracle there. See you next week, everybody.